Okay, first things first, I need to apologize for the delay on this. My Bone Temple video took a little longer than I thought, which pushed this one back a couple weeks. But finally, it's here. And I'm glad those of you who reached out because this movie, as you've said, is truly great. And I'm super shocked it didn't get any Oscar attention, but I guess that's a different conversation, of course. Hopefully here, with my research, I can at least give it some of the appreciation that I think it deserves. So anyway, 2 weeks ago, I saw No Other Choice. And this movie is full of symbolic social commentary from a very legendary director, as you likely know. And I feel like I've spoken already too much in this intro, so let's just get into it. So to break this movie down, we're going to use 3 themes. 1, identity and employment. We'll discuss the original novel, the reason for adaptation, Man-soo's identity, and traditional values around fatherhood and masculinity. 2, Rationale for evil, where we'll discuss corporate cruelty, Man-soo's cruelty versus corporate cruelty, the meaning of the title, the significance of the paper industry, Man-soo reading from his hand, and the symbolism of faces in screens. And 3, surrendering humanity, where we'll discuss Bomo's character, the soundtrack, the crossfaded editing, Man-soo's relationship with his son Si-won, Si-won's nightmares, Si-won's dream in the greenhouse, the symbolism of the greenhouse, and the meaning of the ending in the Lights Out factory, and so much more. Hope you enjoy. Theme number 1, identity and employment. So the best place to start this analysis of No Other Choice is with its very first inspiration. The film is based on the 1997 American novel The Axe by Donald E. Westlake. And this original book has an almost identical premise to the new Korean film. A middle-aged manager at a paper company is laid off, and after an unsuccessful 18-month job search, the man begins to hunt down his 7 closest competitors. And more importantly, we have the same general themes here as well, like attaching your identity to a job, the heartless nature of corporations, and the inevitable loss of your humanity in a capitalistic world. And these are all themes we'll discuss throughout this video, of course. And the book has actually been adapted once before in 2005 by French director Costa Gavras in his film also titled The Axe, again with a nearly identical premise to the book. But when Korean director Park Chan-wook read the novel and saw the French film, he knew he had to put his personal and cultural spin on the story, as he explains in his interview with the New York Film Festival. I think I first read the novel around 2004 or 2005, and even before I closed the book, I knew I wanted to adapt it into a film. The change that came from changing the location to Korea was Man-soo's obsession with the house, or real estate. I felt like that was more of a Korean sentiment. I'm sure everybody would understand that obsession as well, but it was especially stronger in Korea. And another thing is emphasizing the traces of a patriarchal society, which I believe is especially stronger in Korea as well. The responsibilities of what a good husband or dad should be doing. That was also a distinctly Korean element, despite the fact that I'm sure a lot of other people in other cultures could also relate to it. And another difference came from the passage of time. So we reflected the recent introduction of AI, which was especially portrayed in the automatic Lights Out system. So considering all the source material and the personal inspiration, let's now get into the actual movie to discuss how these ideas are dissected through various techniques within the film. So the film starts out in the most picturesque way. The perfect traditional nuclear family with a successful husband, the stay-at-home wife, a son, and a daughter, all eating together on a beautiful sunny day. And for Man-soo, it's this snapshot of family, ownership, and status that he completely ties his identity to. Therefore, in the next scene, when Man-soo loses his job, he loses himself. He refuses to accept the reality of working in any other industry, living in any other house, or providing in any other way, because that isn't him. And these are the age-old false values of fatherhood and masculinity that we have been conditioned to desire across the world for generations. Which is why there's this very subtle symbolic message on one of the work trucks at Man-soo's warehouse job that says, "It's what's inside that matters." But what's inside has never mattered to Man-soo. It's never even occurred to him. It's the same reason Man-soo refuses to tell his son Si-won he is his stepfather. That idea of that perfect family image must be protected in his mind. And ironically, because Man-soo is so locked in on such a specific idea of being a provider, he actually fails even more as a provider. Had Man-soo opened his mind to succeed in any other way, he would have been able to provide in any other way, but he simply can't see any other path. He feels he has no other choice. And the reason that title is said so many times in the film is because it takes on so many different forms from so many different entities across the movie. So let's explore those meanings as Mansu is inevitably led into literally killing the competition. In theme number 2, Rationale for evil. In a film like No Other Choice, kind of similarly to a film like American Psycho, its humor exists within its horror. The funny and the scary come from the same place, this rationalization of cruelty. And we see this rationalization of cruelty through two specific entities in this film, through the corporations that Mansu works for, and eventually through Mansu himself. So let's talk about the corporations first. So as we all know, just about every corporation does terrible things to minimize cost and maximize revenue. Waste, pollution, child labor, dangerous conditions, etc. And of course, companies are unafraid to perform mass layoffs whenever they can. And because corporations operate literally like a psychopath would, willing to achieve their goals by any inhumane means necessary, humanity and our planet continue to suffer more and more. And through PR and branding, these companies are able to frame these very heartless decisions in a way where it's somehow beyond their control due to maybe competition, the economy, or long-term benefit. In other words, they have no other choice. But of course, we know they do certainly have a choice. It's not true at all. So there's a major parallel between Mansu and the companies he works for. They both adopt this by any means necessary attitude and have justified it with this belief that it's the only thing that they can do. It speaks to how the capitalistic world continues to shape us and is slowly draining us of our humanity. It's the same reason the original book is titled The Axe, a tool and weapon used to kill other human beings, while also a term used to describe terminating employees. Both actions stemming from this same justified inhumanity. One is taking lives, the other is taking livelihoods. This also links us to the many super subtle metaphors in The Focus on the paper production industry. An axe is used to cut down trees for the production of goods, like paper. And with current technological advancement in the paper production industry, our methods of mass deforestation, tree cutting, run parallel to our methods of mass layoffs, job cutting. Paper itself is also a symbol. Mansu builds his identity around paper. He essentially lives for paper. The same way companies live for paper. They exist to make money, which is all a metaphor for how a capitalist world shapes our identity, and we build our sense of purpose around this quest to earn more and own more. And it's not only Mansu who is a victim of this paper-driven world. We also see it in Byung-hun. Byung-hun says he only listens to vinyl, only takes photos on film, and only writes on physical paper, signifying his same stubbornness and locked mindset in outdated traditional values. When he loses his job in the industry, he becomes an alcoholic. But as soon as a new opportunity arises, he immediately can kick the addiction, as his only purpose in the world has returned. And if you want to take this paper metaphor one step further, you could say it speaks to how Mansu's life has become so largely scripted. Almost everything he says to make his next move in the corporate world requires reading from his hand, further emphasizing his loss of true identity and inability to speak from the heart where his humanity truly exists. And lastly, Park comments on the danger of technological advancement in how he frames faces through the screens of electronic devices. He often uses phone and tablet screens to capture and reflect the faces of characters at their lowest and their darkest. Like Ara, she scrolls through a list of guns to find the one she used to kill her husband. Or Mansu's face bouncing off of the black screen as he lies to the police. Or Mansu's FaceTime conversations with his wife as he hides his most horrific decisions just below the frame. Theme number 3, surrendering humanity. So after everything I've said, I think it's really important to highlight that Mansu isn't completely inhuman. He's not just this psycho. At the beginning of the film, Mansu certainly has humanity. It's definitely there and intact, and I would say there's a lot of it. Before Mansu is laid off, we hear he objected the downsizing of his own team. But as it often goes in the working world, when you stand your ground, you end up paying the price. Integrity is expensive. So as the film goes along, when Mansu realizes this, his humanity is surrendered. And when we meet Bum-mo later in the film, we realize they've suffered a very similar fate. Mansu and Bum-mo's identities are so deeply tied to the same career, they say the exact same thing to their partners. Paper has fed me for 25 years. Like Bum-mo, Mansu was also an alcoholic while working toward a specialist career in the paper industry. And within their careers, they've both earned the Pulp Man of the Year award, which they continuously mention, reminisce upon, and celebrate. And because of this parallel between them, there are many symbolic shots where we see those two specific characters' faces blended into each other in various ways, highlighting how much of a recurring and common issue these personal problems are across society. And in a very funny scene, yet a very important scene, while Mansu has Bum-mo at gunpoint, Mansu is telling Bum-mo he should have listened to his wife Ara's suggestions about finding a new career and opening his mind to a new life path. All advice he himself could have taken and certainly should have taken from his own wife. It's all a hilariously melodramatic scene that perfectly captures the entitlement and self-importance we attach to ourselves, which is what allows us to justify cruelty and insensitivity towards others. And as this scene goes along, we hear Red Pepper Dragonfly by Cho Young-pil, a song with lyrics that represent longing, loneliness, and yearning for the past. This entire idea of slowly losing your humanity as the years of your life pass you by. And through very clever editing and direction, we get these symbolic visuals of Mansu burying his victims cross-faded over images of his wife rolling over in bed, where combined it looks as if Mansu is burying his wife Miri, giving off the symbolic message that Mansu is abandoning his family out of this blind idea of selfishness and entitlement. And it's not only his wife who Mansu has abandoned, it's his son as well. Mansu is so occupied with providing for his son, he forgets to simply be there for his son. And that misguidance allows Si-won to stray into a path of crime. And those visuals of Si-won's iPhone robbery are intercut with the visuals of Mansu hiding his next victim, which together highlights this intergenerational influence of misguidance and these false paths to success like crime. And during that scene of stealing the iPhones, we hear Let's Walk On by Kim Chung-won, a track about regret, aimlessness, and misdirection. And this entire theme of intergenerational misguidance is demonstrated as this film goes along the rest of the way. When Si-won is about to be taken in by the cops, Mansu stops him and makes sure to tell him that he needs to put himself over others because he has no other choice, betraying his friend who helped him steal the phones. And when Si-won sees his father preparing to chainsaw a body, he then suffers from the same post-traumatic stress that his grandfather suffered from after serving in the Vietnam War. The same grandfather that owned the gun that Mansu is using to kill his victims. And then in Si-won's dream, we see him sitting at the base of the tree, turning into his father, seeing his father, being frightened by his father, and then searching for his father's face with his phone's flashlight. All of these visuals and thematic tie-ins between grandfather, father, and son highlight the absence of guidance, the search for connection, the loss of purpose, and the traumatic experiences that are a result of false ideas of fatherhood and masculinity. So it's no coincidence that the diamond in the rough of this entire story is the greenhouse. Gardening, commonly known to be a feminine activity, is the one uplifting counter to all of Mansu's self-destructive habits and values. Gardening also represents the preservation of plant life, a symbolic counter to the deforestation of the paper industry. And Mansu doesn't make any money off of the garden. He just does it because he loves it. The inverse of his attachment to the paper industry. And the ending is certainly a cold one, but a very honest one, as Mansu and his wife Miri are willing to literally and figuratively bury all of their inhumanity to keep that perfect family picture alive. As Miri in this scene tells Mansu, you shouldn't have lived so hard, equating the word live to the word work, as if at this point those two words mean the exact same thing. And when Mansu is interviewing for the new position, we see that the qualities that make him suitable for this position are the same with the qualities that allowed him to literally kill his competitors, showcasing that it's that exact mindset that the company thrives off of and requires in a manager. And now he works for that company with a new automatic lights out system requiring no workers at all. The complete opposite of what Mansu stood for in the first place. And it's a quote from Re-One that perfectly encapsulates the symbolic meaning of this entire ending and the film itself. She says, "The bugs are eating the apple tree alive." In other words, the helpless soul of our world is slowly being destroyed by a parasitic desperation to simply have more. All right, that's my analysis. As I usually say, I cannot wait to hear any of your thoughts on this film because I'm sure there's even more that you can pull from it. So yes, please let me know below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.